Kyle, Pierre, Dan, Boxing Day, very British term. If you don't know, it's when they used to give the help around the house a box of gifts to take home to their family the day after Christmas. Hence Boxing Day. If you ask an American about Boxing Day, they have no clue what you're talking about. Hey, Pierre, not a good Boxing Day for Marc Savard of the Toronto Maple Leafs coaching staff. He was axed on what, the 24th? Was it the 24th? He was
23rd, I think.
23rd?
23rd.
No, 22nd. It was Monday afternoon.
22nd.
They played Pittsburgh the 23rd in the afternoon, so the 22nd, yeah.
Pierre, your thoughts, because kind of putting all the team's issues on one guy doesn't seem fair.
I didn't like that at all. Power play hasn't been good for the entire season, but the biggest thing is they didn't identify what they needed on the power play, Dan and Kyle. They don't have a power play quarterback. That's really apparent. I don't care who's running the power play. If you don't have a quarterback, it's not going to work. And their big guns haven't been firing on all cylinders, especially Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander. So you can blame it all you want on the coach. Quite frankly, I think there's more of an upper management situation than it is a coaching situation.
Yeah, and Pierre, we went live for a reaction show after that Pittsburgh game. Of course, they win the first game after Savard is axed, but the power play certainly had nothing to do with that victory. Yeah. And in the brief moments they did have a power play, it certainly didn't look any better.
Oh, it really didn't. And look, it's hard to just implement power play ideology in 12 to 14-hour span. You talk about the 22nd. Yeah, they got fired on the 22nd, but it was late in the afternoon. I think it was a 5 o'clock news dump when they did it. And then obviously you got to turn around and play an afternoon game at 4 o'clock the next day against Pittsburgh. But the truth is, and I'm not changing from this, power play is about the type of assets you have, and then you can draw up your schematic to the assets that you have. Their assets aren't good enough because they don't have anybody to stabilize the power play.
Stuart Skinner was in net for the Pittsburgh Penguins in that game, and boy, he has not had a good start in Pittsburgh, Pierre.
Oh my gosh, Dan, I feel so bad for him because the truth of the matter is he really wasn't the only guy at fault in Edmonton, by the way, when they don't win. Their overall team defense is very good. Their 1 through 6 on defense isn't very good, and their star players in Edmonton aren't committing to play total team defense. So when you look at it, you can blame the goalie all you want. This reminds me a lot of what's going on in Toronto on the power play. They blame the coach. The coach doesn't have enough assets. Well, they're blaming the goalie in Edmonton, and they got a lot of fundamental flaws in how their team is built. So it's like it's not very fair, but I feel bad for Stuart Skinner because that Pittsburgh team on paper has overachieved to this point, and now is when the rubber hits the road, and I think you're going to see them fall back. I really believe that.
Yeah, Pierre, we discussed this again in post-game the other night. Very cautious optimism on the way they played because that Pittsburgh team can be a bit of a fugazi for Maple Leafs fans. They play Ottawa tomorrow night in the first game back from the break, and it's going to be a very different story.
Oh, my gosh, is it ever? Because Ottawa is sensing that they got something that they can really do now because they've got Brady Tkachuk back, because they've got, Tommy Shabbat back. But I think the biggest thing about Ottawa coming into Toronto and playing is they're angry. They want to put the boots to Toronto. And we'll see whether they can do it or not. But right now, they've got more than enough firepower. They've got more than enough goaltending. Jake Sanderson's the best defenseman in the National Hockey League outside of Cale Makar. I mean, no disrespect meant to the other guys in the league, but he really is the second best defenseman in the National Hockey League right now. So they got a lot of stuff going on in Ottawa, and most of it's very, very good.
We'll hear a lot of Team Canada in the news as the men's Olympic roster gets announced on New Year's Eve and the World Juniors begin. Mm-hmm. And Pierre, let's begin with your favorite, your most cherished World Juniors memory.
Yeah, no, I love this tournament. Everybody does, especially if you're Canadian. How could you not? I was such an honor, Dan. I know I did a lot of them with you and with, the old team at TSN, but I would just tell you that this World Junior team's really good. They're not just a little bit good. They're really good. And they've got 18 guys that have been first-round picks, and that doesn't count Gavin McKenna, who's going to go either 1, 2, or 3. Doesn't count Verhoff, who's probably going to go in the top 3. It doesn't count Carols, who's probably going to go in the top 8. So they've got 3 guys that haven't even been drafted yet that are on that team. They have 18 first-rounders overall on this team. This is an amazing team on paper. They've got the best possible coach they could have in Dale Hunter. I think Mark Hunter is going to do an amazing job as a leader of this group. yeah, if Team Canada doesn't win a gold after what happened last year in Ottawa and what happened the year before over in Sweden, then I think they got to just have a major referendum and decide what's wrong at Hockey Canada.
No, we've
But
had too many of
I was
those
there
over
for
the
those.
years.
But I think that this Canadian team is very good, and I know everybody's pontificating about the Swedes and the Americans. This Canadian team is so good. They're so good.
Pierre, what about Toronto Maple Leafs prospects in this tournament beyond Team Canada and just the tournament as a whole? How's it looking for them?
It's good. I mean, I don't think it's terrible. It's not terrible. It's just not very deep. When you look at some teams like Philadelphia's got 6 or 7 guys in there. Nashville's got like 4 or 5 guys in there. There are a lot of teams that have multiple levels of prospects in the tournament. Kyle, Toronto might have 1 or 2. There's a Swede that's very good, a defenseman for Sweden, but not. Let's put it this way: they're not overly stacked with high-end prospects in this tournament.
The
That would be Victor
world
Johansson, right? Sorry.
Yeah,
Dan.
Johansson, you got it. Yep.
the World Juniors is much like a craps table. Let me tell you my comparison. I know a craps table is going to be great if you have a cowboy, like a real life cowboy there with hands that are as hard as cast iron. You're like, this, we're going to go on a heater here. The World Juniors for Canada, they have their cowboy whenever they have a Peterborough hockey connection. And they have it in Porter Marteau.
Well, yeah, some people in East Lansing, Michigan would say, no, 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 no. He's a Michigan State Spartan. But yes, you're absolutely true and right on that. Porter's really good. Obviously, a draft pick of the Philadelphia Flyers. Somebody's going to make a big difference. Probably going to play on a line with Misa and Iginla to start the tournament. I would expect he's going to be a dominant power forward in the tournament. It's going to be tough to play against Canada because if you just look at the right side, Martone, Brady Martin from Sault Ste. Marie, who's a first-rounder in Nashville, and Luchenko, who's a first-rounder of Philadelphia. It's almost impossible just to think if you're a left defenseman for any of the other countries that have to play against Canada, you're going to get pulverized by those 3 guys. It's whether it's speed, size, strength, skill, it doesn't matter. Just that the top 3 right wingers for Canada, they're going to crush the other team's left defense, in my opinion.
Pierre, here's something I've been thinking about this week, and it's a curiosity I'd like you to answer for me. How does it differ when it comes to selecting a team captain for a junior team versus, say, an Olympic or an NHL team? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're all kids. What are the differentiating factors? Is it just maturity? Is it presence on the ice? Is it locker room? I'm sure it's a similar overlap to the pros, but there has to be some differences too.
I think the biggest thing, just sense of familiarity. How much experience has Porter Martone had as an international player for Canada? How much experience has he had playing in Memorial Cups? How much experience has he had, playing in long OHL playoff series? And I think the Hunters really have a feel for that. I've been part of some Team Canada situations where maybe the captaincy wasn't dealt with properly, just went to the very best guy. Not sure that's always the best way to do it. Is Martone one of the best players in this team? Yeah. Is he probably one of the better leaders on this team just based on that maturity factor? Yes. The Team Canada at the Olympics or best on best 4 nations, that's a totally different animal than what this is. This is one of those where I think you got to be a conduit from the coaching staff to the players and also know how to control the room, because the biggest thing, and I saw Dale Hunter talk about this, Dan and Kyle, and I've seen a million times where it does kick in, the emotion. The guys get overamped because they're kids. And when they get overamped, they take bad penalties. And when they take bad penalties, you give lesser teams an opportunity to win. And that's where you need to have a stabilizing voice on the bench who's that conduit from the coaching staff to the players. That's where I think Martone really fits in well.
Let us behind the curtain, Pierre, head coach of the World Juniors. How much contact, or if any, do they have with the head coaches of all these players to get the details, the stuff no one else knows about? Say, oh yeah, he can really help you here, he can really help you there. Does that happen?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, it does happen. And that's why I think the Hunter brothers as a whole, based on what they've done with the London Knights, Dan, is so important because they do work well together as a management team and a coaching staff. And they also are unbelievably well connected. So they can pick up the phone and call anybody they want and say, hey, where does Misa fit in? How's he going to fit in? But they probably already know that from their Ontario Hockey League stuff. I think this is more with kids that are playing college or kids that are come from the Western Hockey League. There's only one player from the Quebec Major Junior League on the team, and it's Caleb Desnoyers. That's the only player from the Q. Everybody else is either from the Ontario League or college hockey or the Western Hockey League. So those aren't hard calls to make, and they do happen, Dan. Absolutely, they do happen.
Assuming Team Canada is the favorite in this tournament, which you've alluded to, who are the most immediate threats to win gold?
Sweden's going to be really tough. The biggest thing about the Swedes, and they're in the different pool, they're in the A pool, Canada's in the B pool. The biggest thing about the Swedes, they are unbelievably deep on defense, just like their Olympic team. They're very quick, and there's a young player you need to watch who will probably go in the first 3 picks of the draft, Ivar Stenmark. He's big, or Stenlund, excuse me. He's big, he's fast, he's skillful, he does make a difference. So that's somebody that I would pay attention to. But their team is really well balanced. They've played a lot of big games in the tournament. You go back 2 years ago, they lost in the gold medal game to the Americans, but Lekkerimäki was the MVP of the tournament. That was in Sweden. So they've got some stuff where they've still got some pent up aggression. I think the Swedes are going to be really tough.
The tournament's in Minnesota, eh? The only other place aside from Canada that actually draws a crowd.
Yeah, no, they get a good crowd. There's no question about that. The Minnesotans are really proud hockey people. But it used to be back in the day, Dan, when I was coaching, it was always the 3 M's where you went to find players: Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota. It's interesting because they're playing some of the tournament games at 3M Arena on the campus of the University of Minnesota. But no, hockey's grown so much, and the state of Minnesota really is the state of hockey, even though it's grown exponentially around the United States and around the world. The crowds will be great. I think it gives the U.S. a little bit of an advantage in the A pool, but not a ton. Not a ton. I'm worried about the Americans' depth in defense. It's unproven outside of a couple guys. Like Hessler is a really good player out of the University of Wisconsin. Hudson out of BU is a real good player, but there's a little bit of lack of depth, I think, on their defense. They're going to have more than enough firepower, but I don't know if their goaltending is going to measure up like it has in previous years. So that's something to watch on their side. But the crowd will even it out a little bit for them, no question.
Yeah, Pierre, if you're worried about the U.S. defense, then I'm happy that you're worried about the U.S. defense. That means we'll be able to score more goals against them. I'm curious if there's a reason why. I mean, yes, we get it. Hockey is in Canadians' blood, but this tournament just doesn't seem to have the same following around the world, and specifically the U.S. And you'd almost think it would. What nations grasp onto this anywhere near the way Canada does?
The Finns do a really good job with it. The Swedes do a real good job with that and getting better all the time. I think if you did it now in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, excuse me, used to be Czech Republic, or you do it in Slovakia, maybe down the road, it would probably catch on. But honestly, I think the Swedes and the Finns are doing a much better job. The reason why I don't think it catches on in the United States as much, it's their bowl season. It's their NFL playoff kind of season. And you've got all these massive bowl games now, and especially when you consider what's going on with the college football championships right now, people just in the South don't pay attention to the World Junior. I was at a Christmas party last night down here in South Carolina, and everybody was talking about Alabama. Everybody's talking about who's going to be the coach of University of Michigan in football. Everybody's talking about, what's going on with the Georgia Gators. And then I had a couple of Canadian guys who are hockey guys that live down here, and they said, "What about the World Junior?" I said, "Well, I'll be watching it. I won't be watching the other stuff." And they're like, "Man, if these people could ever get to watch it." But you can't penetrate it because all they talk about is Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. That's all they talk about. University of Texas. It's unbelievable.
And also, Pierre, of note, the University of Minnesota plays in a bowl game this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. So, I mean, there might be a slight drop in attendance at any games at the World Juniors today, but then they'll be bored stiff.
And I do think after today that you'll start to see more people there. Also, though, I got to say, like next year, it's in Edmonton, and people are already talking about, Edmonton and the World Junior in Canada. And Dan and Kyle, you know how big that's going to be. That's going to be massive. And I think that's great for the sport, and I think it's great for the World Junior. I did 9 World Juniors for TSN, but I've been around the tournament since 1989. And I got to tell you, it's just something that's grown exponentially and unbelievably over the course of that time. So what are we talking? Almost 37 years, how much it's grown.
There, you were at a Christmas party. You have some mucky muck neighbors. Who can you name drop? Who was the biggest name there?
No, there were no big names there that you would know.
Okay, so none of the other ones.
These are, believe it or not, a lot of the people who live in my neighborhood are former military people or former college football people. that live in my
I
neighborhood.
feel
It's kinda
safe
nice.
living around either of those.
I feel really safe in this neighborhood.
Pierre served cranberry sauce to General Norman Schwarzkopf, and that was about as happy of a military
I
parade.
read
around
his
the dinner table.
autobiography. I'll tell you that Schwarzkopf's autobiography is unbelievable. If you haven't
My
read
father
it, you should
told me
read
that.
it. It's really good. It's really
Time to play 1 to agree of Pierre McGuire. I turn around, point to a card. You tell us our connection. I don't think I've ever gone upper left. Oh boy, this is a softball. Ron Sutter.
Well, the Sutter brothers, obviously, he's one of them, and know both Ronnie and Brent and Brian and Daryl and Richie. Yeah, phenomenal.
How many
people.
fights would have been in that house growing up? Like 7 a day?
Well, the only problem is that I think Father Sutter was tougher than all the boys. And so Mama Sutter had to break them all up. But that house, that ranch house in Viking, Alberta, must have some amazing stories if the walls can talk. But Ronnie was a good player. He's a great, diligent checker, proud guy, very good teammate. He and Richie had so much pressure on him because they were, twins coming out after following the youngest ones and following their brothers. And you think about all the success that the brothers had. But yeah, no, Ronnie and Richie really well.
Nice work. Well, happy Boxing Day. I don't know what you do now. Everyone just kind of just mulling
believe it
around
or
the
not,
house.
I'm gonna go hit a couple golf balls. and then I'm gonna
Oh,
watch the World
get out of
Juniors.
here. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it.
I don't have that option.
You guys have a little snowstorm coming, don't you?
We don't want to hear it, Pierre.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, I know you're going away on your trip, and I just want to tell you, have a really good trip. I mean that sincerely, Dan.
I will. The weather is warmer in communism. Cuba.
Always is.
Kyle, I'll be talking to you next week.
Pierre, I'll see you then.
See you,
Thanks
gents.
a lot. Take care, man. Bye-bye.